I want to welcome to the program from George Mason University, Dr. Walter Williams. Dr. Williams, thank you so much for coming on the show, sir.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed your piece. Are guns the problem? And as great a question as that is, Dr. Williams, we've already seen today that for the gun control advocates, the answer is it doesn't matter. Whatever the situation, we can make it about gun control.
Yeah, well, I think that's very unfortunate, and I think that one of the things that, as I point out in my column, are guns are the problems. Americans have had access to guns, easy access to guns for most of our history, and as I point out in the column, in New York City, there were high school rifle clubs, and high school students used to get on the train with their rifles in a rifle pack, and when they got to school, they'd turn it into the coach, and then after school, they'd go to the rifle club, and so and in my Sears and Roebuck catalog, I have from 1902. There are 35 pages of gun advertisements. But I think that there's, in terms of dealing with the anti-Second Amendment crowd in our country, I think that the NRA and other people have they've been derelict in one way, in a very, very important way, and that is coming up and letting American people know why the founders to our nation gave us the Second Amendment in the first place. And one of the things that we have to recognize is that the founders of our nation had a deep distrust of the United States Congress. And just look at the language of the Bill of Rights. It says, Congress shall not disparage, Congress shall not prohibit, Congress shall not infringe, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if the founders did not think that Congress would do those things, why in the world would they put them in there? Right. And as I frequently suggest to people, when we die, and if at our next destination we see anything like the Bill of Rights, we know that we're in hell, because a Bill of Rights in heaven would be an insult to God. And now on my website, I have a whole bunch of quotes, statements of the founders. Let me just read a couple, but there are many, many. Thomas Jefferson: what country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Noah Webster, at the Constitutional Convention, he said, and won't read his whole quote. He said, "Before a standing army can rule, the people must be disarmed, as there are in most every kingdom in Europe." And so, with the founders, they didn't give us the Second Amendment so that we can go deer and duck hunting, and let's say to protect our household. That was not the primary purpose of the Second Amendment. The primary purpose of the Second Amendment was to allow the American people some kind of power to resist our government. And you look at the very people who want to strike down the Second Amendment, they are the very people who want to run our lives, who want to ignore the Constitution. And I think that the NRA and other groups, they ought to make this very, very plain what the intentions of the Second Amendment were.
Talking with Dr. Walter Williams from George Mason University. Yeah, Dr. Williams, I'm sure that you see this as well. One of the problems that you run into when you start talking about the historical basis, not only for our Second Amendment rights, but for all of our rights, at some point you're going to run headlong into the fact that there are a large number of Americans who don't really get the importance of these rights. They don't understand the blood and sweat and treasure that has been paid so that we get to enjoy these rights as robustly as we do, and how different this country is compared to so many other nations around the world. I think there's a great deal of ignorance and education that has to go along with that.
You're absolutely right, but I think it's something that Americans differ from other people, surely, but we Americans share a characteristic of down through mankind. That is, liberty has almost always won a hostile reception. That is, there's nothing older than the idea that some people should rule and others should obey. Mm-hmm. There's nothing older than the idea that one person has a right to live at the expense of other people. And Americans are not that much different. If you look at if founders of our nation, let's say James Madison, who is the father of the Constitution, if he were running for office today, the American, and saying what he said, the American people would run him out of town on the rails. Just for one example, and these quotes are available at my webpage, walterwilliams.com. The one example, in 1794, Congress appropriated $15,000 to help some French refugees. And James Madison stood on the floor of the House irate, and he said, and I'm virtually quoting him, "I cannot undertake to lay my finger on that article in the Constitution that authorizes Congress to spend the money of their constituents for the purposes of benevolence." Now, if you look at the federal budget, 2/3 to 3/4 of it is for the purpose of benevolence. And can you imagine what the American people would do to a presidential candidate today making the same statement that James Madison made?
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so one of the jobs, one of the big jobs, one of the very, very difficult jobs that we have to do is try to sell our fellow Americans on the moral superiority of personal liberty, and its main ingredient is limited government.
Talking with Dr. Walter Williams of George Mason University, and Dr. Williams, in your piece, you also talk about how we got to where we are today. The fact that we used to live in a society in which, as you say, guns were readily available, and yet there was not the frequency and kind of gun-related violence that we see today. It wasn't the gun laws, or it wasn't just the gun laws that helped bring about these changes. You say customs, traditions, moral values, and rules of etiquette.
You're right.
How? I mean, when you think about it, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Camden, New Jersey, Oakland, California, they want even more gun control laws. Los Angeles, all of these places have very restrictive gun control laws. They have violent crime problems that have persisted for decades despite these gun control laws. When can we start talking about the cultural and social influences, the things that can't be touched by legislation?
Well, I think we need to start talking about them. That is, as I said in the column, that moral standards, the moral standards of conduct and strict punishment for criminal behavior, it has been under siege in our country for a long time. That is, people make excuses for criminal behavior. He lived in a single-family household, or he was abused as a kid, or they give many excuses, and some of the things that they do are lunatic. It's lunacy rather. Things like they have a zero tolerance in school about guns. Like the kids can't play cops and robbers, and
right.
Cowboys and Indians during recess shouting bang bang. They'll get suspended from school, or a kid who bit the shape of a gun out of a Pop-Tart, and he was disciplined for that. I mean, that is sheer lunacy.
Listen, Professor, we just had a story, and I'm sure you've seen the story about the journalism professor at the University of Kansas who, during the Navy Yard shooting, tweeted the next time, I hope it's the children of NRA members who are killed. And his colleagues who have rallied around him and his First Amendment rights to say things like this. There was a 16-year-old girl in Orange County, California this week who was told to take off her NRA shirt because it was deemed to violate the school's dress code because it had a silhouette of a hunter on it. So we're in a position now where we're talking about in defending people's First Amendment rights to wish death on that little girl, but that little girl, that 16-year-old girl, doesn't have the First Amendment right to wear her T-shirt in support of the Second Amendment at school.
Well,
I'm confused by this.
It's all a part of the lunacy, and this professor at Kansas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I mean, sure. I mean, he has a First Amendment right to say anything that he wants to. But on the other hand, he doesn't have the right to say those things under the color of his job. Officially as a professor or something.
Right. Absolutely. But as you say, we excuse. Look, we'll defend that professor's right to say these things, but nobody's going to champion the First Amendment rights of this student. Nobody champions the First Amendment rights of the 14-year-old in West Virginia who was suspended for wearing his NRA shirt. You're right. I mean, the kids who are getting suspended for pointing their thumb and forefinger into the shape of a gun and playing cops and robbers at school, That's nonsense. And I'm a father of an 8-year-old, but they're going after the idea of gun ownership. It's not just you're going after boys for being boys. They're going after students for daring to support the Second Amendment.
Oh, that is absolutely right, and we as the American people were allowing them to do that. But I think that at one case where a person was suspended or disciplined for wearing a shirt, NRA shirt, I think that something like 50 kids showed up with the same kind of shirt.
Yep, and you're absolutely right, and I think that's what it takes. It takes all of us standing up and saying, "Listen, we're not gonna put up with this anymore." We're like the World War II veterans who said, "We're not gonna let a little barricade stand between us and this World War II memorial. We'll be peaceful. We're not gonna be violent. We're not gonna be mean spirited, but we're gonna stand up for what we believe in. We're gonna stand up for our rights."
Yeah. Well, I think that. Americans should somehow, peaceably protest these things, just not go along with the law, because these people, they start out with something small, and then they get on the slippery slope. Back in the just one example, back in the day when they were talking about religious liberty and no prayers in schools, and if these people who are pushing for these atheists who are pushing for no prayers in school, if they had announced their full agenda, they wouldn't have gotten anything. Or the same thing with the people, the tobacco anti-tobacco zealots. They start out saying, "Oh, well, we just want separate sections for smoking on airplane." Or then when they got that, they said, "Well, no smoking altogether." And then they went on and on and on to what we have today. Now, the point is that if they had in 1960, if they had demanded every single thing, they wouldn't have gotten anything. And so, what the strategy of tyrants is to go piecemeal, and that's the way they can be most successful. And the same thing with gun control. They're saying back in 1935, they said, "Okay, we just want to get rid of machine guns."
Yeah.
and now they're calling almost any weapon except a handgun. They're calling it an assault weapon.
Oh, exactly.
And these people who are calling an assault weapon, they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Well, no, I mean, look, that's Dr. Williams. That's a whole other rant we could go on here. I mean, when you have the chief house sponsor of the magazine ban who doesn't know how magazines work, who thinks that you throw magazines away after you use them once. And she's been the chief sponsor for 2 sessions of this bill. Now, listen, I mean, I don't care if we're talking about gun control, nuclear safety, nutrition, whatever. If you don't know enough about the object that you're trying to regulate to know that how it basically functions, stop. Don't sponsor that legislation. You don't know anything.
I think you're being unnecessarily strict, because we have the health care law, where we're told, well, we have to pass it to know what's in it.
Well, hey, listen, you can call me unfairly strict, but if they had followed my advice, we wouldn't be dealing with the repercussions of that law, would we?
Yeah, right.
Hey, listen, Dr. Williams, I really appreciate you coming on the program, sir. It is great to finally talk to you. I'm a big fan of what you do, and
okay.
Huge
Well,
admirer.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. We'd love
Keep
to do
up
it
good
again.
work.
Thank you, sir. Dr.
Bye.
Walter Williams joining us from George Mason University.